Licensure is often seen in our industry as a milestone, but a lot of people overlook kind of its deeper importance. So from your perspective, why is earning and upholding a professional license so essential, not just for the legal practice, but really as like a foundation for ethical responsibility in civil engineering and land surveying?
We work in the built environment in engineering and surveying, so a lot of what we do needs to have the seal on it for the protection of the public. That is the purpose for the licensure. There's a lot of other engineering that is kind of in the theoretical that doesn't deliver a tangible product, right? Or it's industrial or the chemical.
How important is professional licensure in civil engineering? What about the combination of a professional engineering license and a surveying license for civil engineers? And also, how much can a manager really impact someone personally and professionally? We're going to discuss all of those topics in today's episode. I have my guest today, Lisa Peterson. Lisa is a professional engineer and a professional land surveyor, a pretty rare combination these days. And she works for Dewberry, one of the leading organizations across the world when it comes to civil engineering. We're so excited to have Lisa. She is going to talk about licensure. She'll talk about innovation and technology in civil engineering and surveying. She's also going to talk about something that one of her favorite managers did for her that she is now going to do or plans to do with her teams. Before we jump in, I want to tell you about AEC PM Connect, an interactive in-person experience where civil engineers can sharpen their project management and leadership skills and learn about topics like AI in project management, earned value, risk management, and more. And here's the exciting part. At this event, we'll also be announcing the winners of the AEC PM Awards, recognizing professionals who lead with purpose and deliver measurable results. We're trying to raise up project management in our industry and shine a light on it. Just imagine someone from your firm being named AEC PM of the Year. That kind of recognition can boost your people, your culture, and your firm's reputation in a big way. The event will take place on June 10, 2026 at the Forest Gate Country Club in New Jersey. You can register now at aecpmconnect.com. Again, that's aecpmconnect.com. And if you want to nominate someone for the awards, head over to aecpmawards.com to download the nomination guide before the deadline of February 28th. I'm your host, Anthony Fasano, and this is the Civil Engineering Podcast, the industry's leading show for civil engineering professionals, ranked as the #1 civil engineering podcast by FeedSpot. All right, well, now I'd like to welcome my guest onto the show for today. Lisa Peterson is a licensed professional engineer, also a professional land surveyor. She's also the Associate Vice President and Manager of Strategic Client Engagement at Dewberry. Lisa, welcome to the Civil Engineering Podcast.
Hi, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to get to talk a little bit here. And maybe before we dive in, could you share a little bit about your background and kind of the path that brought you to your current role at Dewberry?
Sure, no problem. So first and foremost, I'm a Jersey native, North Jersey. Made my way down to South Jersey after a 4-year residency up in New Brunswick, Canada. In the middle through there. I am what you refer to as a boomerang employee at Dewberry. I began at the Rutherford Bloomfield office just after graduating from Stevens with the civil engineering degree. Left Dewberry. That's public information. We all know that I was departed. When went to gain my survey experience. I needed to get that in order to become the PLS. And then we ended up moving to New Brunswick, Canada for family reasons. We're there for about 4 years and then came back to New Jersey after having my daughter. We were using all vacation time to come back. So we decided to return full time. And I was able to return to Dewberry as a department manager and, was able to, when returned to the States, came back to Dewberry. And since then I've had advancing roles, department manager, business unit manager, and now the in charge of client management here at Dewberry.
That's great. And maybe you can just talk a little bit about, the civil engineering and surveying combination. I think is such an interesting and really valuable, combination. I started my career doing surveying myself and then, became a civil engineer. And I wonder if you could just talk about, what made you interested in that, like take us through that, kind of how you decided to go and get both of those.
So I as a civil engineering student, I did a survey, I did a study abroad program to Scotland and the UK. So I have a different survey experience than most civil engineering students. We did a practicum at the end of the school year where we did about a 3-week program intensive. So it was a full week of coursework nonstop in the classroom, like 8 to 5 full work day. Might have been 2 weeks. I mean, it's been 25 years ago at this point. And then we did 2-week kind of field work up in the Scottish Highlands. So the university had an agreement with, I guess it would be similar to preservation land, where the students, under the direction of like a registered surveyor, some agreement, would help with some land preservations. So it was our work, our responsibility to go out there and do some of the field work. So while most of my peers were doing a Survey 101 course, I had a deep dive intensive. It was just different than others. And so that was my entry 101, not realizing that my peers were using, we'll say, outdated equipment. I, since the get-go, had always had brand new equipment or very, very new equipment. I didn't realize that survey was actually its own profession until years later. I was already working as a civil engineer, kind of advancing my way through. I think I was actually studying for the PE exam, and I needed some base mapping for a design project. And I went to go talk to the field guys to just say, like, what's the status update on the mapping? And one of the crew chiefs said, if you want this any quicker, you're going to have to go get your own license, or, just like a kind of a snarky comment. And that just spurred into me looking into it. And, I was said,
Wow.
oh, okay. Hey, within the month, I think I was signing up for the program, because Bloomfield office, Newark, right there,
That's
tuition
amazing.
reimbursement program, like it all just kind of,
Right.
yeah, so I did it. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And
Yeah.
well, I mean, I guess you could have stopped at, the Scotland Hills, kind of turned me on to surveying, but I guess
Yeah.
the
Oh,
comment
because
also was
yeah,
interesting.
no, it did not go well. I mean, I passed. I was smart of me to take all the other challenging courses, because when you
Right.
do an exchange program, it's pass fail. So I took all of my thermodynamics, dynamics, all the hard classes. I did
Yeah.
the abroad program, but yeah, we completely busted the traverse. It
Oh, I'm
was,
sure it
everything we
wasn't
did was
easy.
useless.
I mean,
Which, what would you expect for students who don't know what they're doing? But
right.
it's a great experience overall. We enjoyed it.
That's
It was a
great.
good
That's
time.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, licensure is often seen in our industry as a milestone, but a lot of people overlook kind of its deeper importance. So, from your perspective, why is earning and upholding a professional license so essential, not just for the legal practice, but really as like a foundation for ethical responsibility in civil engineering and land surveying?
So I'm gonna unpack that kind of in a few folds. Me personally, I didn't feel like I had met my professional commitment until I got the licensure. Doctors, they would go to med school, but would they be a doctor until they got licensed, right? Like a lawyer would go to, law school, but they'd have to pass the bar. So I wasn't going to feel satisfied until I received the license. We work in the built environment in engineering and surveying. So a lot of what we do needs to have the seal on it for, for the reason, for the protection of the public. That is the purpose for the licensure. There's a lot of other engineering that is kind of in the theoretical, that doesn't deliver a tangible product, right? Or it's industrial, or the chemical. It's a
It's not
different component.
community based.
Yeah. Ours is, civil. It's a function of the community. Everything that we do is, it's moving people, like our road. I'm transportation, so it's roadways, but sanitation, drinking water, it's a function of civilization. That's civil, part of civil engineering. So it's for the protection and safety, and having that licensure, having that annual reminder for the ethics, and having to, complete our ethics. I think there's some gravity associated with with having our license.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. The protection of the protection and welfare of and the safety is the three most important parts of what we do. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that,
Mm.
or we forget. It just doesn't sit at the front end, right? Because we're so worried about schedule, budget,
Yeah.
deliverables, and those are important too. We're running a business, right? We're not, um,
Right.
but the root of it is for the people.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I mean, as civil engineers, everything we do does impact civilization, right? The communities out there. And sometimes we do get lost. I remember myself working on these massive grading plans, stormwater designs, and you're into the details and you're running the numbers and you want the numbers to work and all that stuff is important. But at the end of the day, if something does go wrong, I mean, there's really could be lives at stake. Obviously, like you said, the safety, the health, welfare of the public is really in our hands. I mean, and I don't think that's an over exaggeration. So we really need to keep that at the forefront of our minds. And that licensure, obviously, number one, ensures that we're technically competent in going through the proper procedures to make sure that we're technically competent to be able to sign and seal your drawings. And I think there's also, in addition to that, like a public trust, right? Like reinforcing public trust, knowing that, like you said, you go to a doctor, you want to go to a doctor that's licensed, right? And can practice and can do the work that they need to do on you. Well, at the same time, do you want to drive over a bridge that is designed by someone who doesn't have the proper license or education, right? No, you don't. So I think there's a lot of layers to it. And for those of you out there that I'm sure a lot of our listeners are licensed, but I know some of you are probably on the path of licensure or maybe even deciding on whether or not it is for you. And I would kind of strongly urge you that I think any civil engineering professional should get their license, for all the reasons that Lisa talked about, for the reasons I talked about with public trust. And really, like, it's one of those things, you pass this test or the exam and no one could ever take it away from you as long as you keep your credits up, which is just really important for your career as well long term. But I do think, it shows that technical competence, it builds, inspires trust in you. And the other thing I'll say about it, when I used to interview engineers when I worked at the consulting firm I worked for, I would always ask them, have you started the licensure process? Because I think it tells people something about you in terms of your career and your motivation and where you want to go in your career. And if you have your EIT at this point, it goes on your resume, right? And that tells someone, wow, you took that. That's not an easy test to take. You took it, you passed it, you're committed to the process of getting your license. And when they're looking at 20 or 30 candidates, that's definitely one factor that they're going to factor in pretty heavily. So there are so many benefits to licensure, beyond just kind of that career milestone, that I think you really need to consider when you're thinking through that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Lisa, you kind of have a rare combination of consulting and also regulatory experience that you bring to the table. And I'm wondering how kind of the different projects that you've worked on in the past, how that maybe influences the way that you're able to build client relationships and, lead projects and people, just because of that varied background that you have.
So for me, it's kind of a 2-for-1 deal. It's kind of integrated and just like a natural integral component of about me. I really enjoyed learning about the statutes and the regulations, and that came about more so in the surveying education than the engineering. When you go back, when I went back to school for the surveying program, so much more of the regulations is written to explain what you can and can't do in relationship to the survey profession.
Hmm.
And so I got really attuned to what that meant. And then that really opened up my eyes into just being more aware of regulations in general, and how that applies to how we deliver projects, right? And then into policies and procedures. So, just kind of by acknowledging what's needed in those regulations, I'm able to share one with the client, making sure that they're adhering, because over time there's a lot less surveyors than there are engineers.
Mm.
And remember, 30 years ago, you can be licensed as a surveyor if you were an engineer. You used to be able to just check a
Right. I
box.
remember that. My old boss had that. Yeah.
Right. So there are still some of those legacy people practicing. And I'm not going to take away from credentials that people have from a long time ago, because I think there are very talented people that can exist But the requirement now is the three-legged stool, right? The education, the experience, and the exam. And part of that is understanding in the experience and the education part is those regulations, right? So since the early 90s, there have been people that maybe practicing in the lane that they're not supposed to. So it's making sure, I like to make sure that we are doing the right thing, that that they're doing the surveying work and that the engineers are doing the engineering work, right? Like who is allowed to do the boundary and the mosaic work versus, the engineering component to that. So that's information that I've been sharing through continually. And that's, something since I've been taking classes, as a student, kind of sharing that through, just to make sure that everyone's in tune to that.
Right.
So that's a communication component, right? Something we need to promote forward. And I think that goes back to a question you had asked earlier, is making people more aware. But in regards to, to our relationships with clients, also making sure that they are aware of what is needed, right?
Mm.
Because in time with successions, people are losing historic knowledge. So everyone's not necessarily sure of what needs to happen. And we want to make sure that everyone is, just kind of up to date and current what's needed. There's other things that are going to start taking place or what's going on regarding up and coming changes. So things that I'm involved with when it comes to upcoming regulatory changes, I'm aware of just from committees and organizations that I participate in. The last time that there was a datum change was 30 years ago.
Right. Right.
Technology is changing, the way that we calculate things, it's all changing. So, in the coming years, there's going to be another datum change, right? So that's going to
Right.
impact future projects. And so I like to be able to explain that in kind of the simplistic terms so that more people understand it.
Yeah.
And get that information out, because there's a lot of really, really smart people that exist with us, but the communication level, there's a breakdown somewhere where not everyone is, they're just not aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
So as part of, what I like to do is just kind of share that information, information through.
I think that's great. And I think what I take away from that also is, the more experience you have, the more people you can connect with, right? The different, whether you're in societies or associations, you're building your knowledge, you're becoming more well-rounded, and that's just going to help you build better client relationships. I mean, I say this probably on every episode. Civil engineers need to be well-rounded. We need to understand as much as we can about the projects, because we're a lot of times that trusted advisor that the clients come to and they ask questions about, well, what's going on with the municipality? What's going on with the regulations? What's going on with the budget? What's going on with the schedule? And so if you know about surveying, maybe you're not licensed like Lisa, but if you know about surveying, you could talk to your survey team and translate that information to the client. That helps you to be more well-rounded. If you know a little bit about technology and some of the tools that your design team's using, you can be more well-rounded and having smarter and more intelligent conversations. So I think that that's an important thing. And that kind of takes me into what I want to talk about next, which you mentioned, which is technology. Technology today is evolving so rapidly, Lisa, that I'm curious, when you think about civil engineering and surveying for that matter, how can someone keep up with this technology, but also, remain loyal to our ethical guidelines that we have in place? Because, I think there could be some tricky and challenging situations, because you want to keep up with AI technology. Everything's moving faster, but like we talked about earlier, the safety, health, and welfare of the public is also at stake here. So how do you kind of navigate that balancing act?
So first, I do want to point out that we do have canons for both professions, right? So that kind of sets standards as to like what our code of ethics are and how they exist. What might be alluding to is that decision-making aspect with the potential technology making a decision to decide least harm. The kind of some of it we're referring to, that's still to be determined. But in the human sense, we want to do good. We want to deliver good good products, and be able to go home at the end of the day knowing that we did the honest thing, that we acted faithfully and ethically. there's always going to be an outlier in the mix, right?
Right.
A deceptive human is a deceptive human. There's nothing you can do about that. But generally, we want to do good things. And that, what we're really good as a profession is that annually we have the reminders. We have those organizations that will host the ethical annual renewals, right? Is so that we are acting in good faith, to uphold the canons. And they're basic, it's be a good human. Don't be deceptive. Don't overcharge. Stay within your lane. Work within what you know how to do. Ask for help. Don't be a crook. Don't do fraud. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's really root stuff. And
Right.
I think we overcomplicate it for ourselves at times. And it's really basic.
Yeah, it
Right?
is basic. It totally is basic.
As professionals and in the technology world, we really analysis paralysis is the worst thing that we do to ourselves.
Yeah,
We
every
know
every
the
every
answers.
day, every
Yeah,
day.
exactly.
No,
Exactly.
but I think the one thing that's a really good point is, there is a canon or a guideline out there for licensed engineers, licensed surveyors. States have their own canon sometimes and guidelines. The problem is a lot of times as engineers, we just want to get through the process of the checklist, the FE exam, get my 4 years of experience, get the PE exam, check it off. We got a license, put the letters behind our name. We're good to go kind of thing. And I think sometimes newly minted PEs aren't aware of the canons. No one shares it with them. No one tells them about the importance of it. And that's where being involved in a society, whether it's like an ASCE or an NSPE, can be really helpful for you. But I would recommend for those of you out there that either are licensed or about to be licensed, make sure that you take a look at the code of ethics, right, for the profession. Make sure you read through it. I remember I used to have a copy of it when I was practicing, printed out like in my office. Just, it's good to have around. It's good to check in with, because that really is what, as a PE, you're held accountable to. That's a standard that you're held accountable to, whether you like it or not. And like Lisa said at the beginning of this interview, we're not talking about, hey, if you get this wrong, your client's going to be mad at you. We're talking about, hey, if you get this wrong, people could get hurt. I don't even want to say the more extreme version, but it happens, right? So I think keeping that at the forefront of your mind is very, very, very important. So, Lisa, the last question I want to ask, and then we'll transfer into our career kind of wrap up segment. You have a combined background that we've talked about: engineering, surveying. You've been involved in client strategy. What would you say are some of the trends or changes that you foresee kind of shaping the future of professional practice in civil engineering here over the next decade, just from what you're seeing so far out there?
Trends I'm seeing within the industry, not just within New Jersey, national level, but I think it's even bigger than us, is limited staffing.
Mm,
So staff augmentation and the need to share resources until we have the opportunity to repopulate future generations of engineers and surveyors. I just don't think that there's enough out there. We lost them in a recession, probably in our early profession. They left, and I don't think that we've been promoting engineering and surveying enough as a career path. So that's one trend that I saw, but I do have a positive trend too, actually. And it's kind of a micro trend though, but I am seeing, or I've heard I saw it in New Jersey, but I've also heard through some other states that the schools that are offering the civil engineering and the land surveying, that there are students who are taking the dual at the front end, as
no, that's
opposed
great.
to like a student like me who was already an engineer and then going back, to complete the program. So we may see an uptake, in a future generation in the dual professionals.
That's great.
And
I
I
think
think that,
that's
yeah,
that's a huge plus. I mean,
um,
anybody out there listening to this that's a civil engineer and you have any interest in surveying, I highly recommend, if at all possible, that you pursue it. I mean, obviously, Lisa's proof of combining the two of them. I don't have a surveying license, but I did start my career with a company as an intern. And I was in the field doing a lot of surveying. And I can tell you, when I started doing civil engineering work, I really had a lot better handle on design, because I had seen a lot of stuff in the field when I was doing the surveying work. And really, the two go hand in hand. I mean, a lot of times the first part of the project is the survey, right? And then you
absolutely.
get into the civil engineering design. So even those of you that might be working for an organization or want to start your own organization, having the survey and the civil engineering is such a leg up, because you usually know about the projects as the surveyor well before the civil engineer gets involved. So I think that's a great observation by Lisa, seeing those dual degrees. And if you have the opportunity to do it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah. So, and then regarding so the other components of that you were asking on the client strategy end, I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to have exposure to the clients with so much succession just being readily available, with so many retirements that are taking place, and I just think there's a lot of growth opportunity for people within a lot of their organizations, probably both on the client and the consultant side, because again, it has to do with that same thing, that everything's cyclical. I think there's been waves of people that went into engineering, people who either left or, the wave that came in probably in our generation is now in charge, or will be taking over, and we're looking for that next wave of people to come in. So anyone that's in that uptake or whatever, I would gladly have them as what we like to call as the second seat, or that person that will be the person that will replace me. I'm always looking for the person to replace me so I can get another job.
Yeah, that's great. So some good stuff there. So we got, the idea of staff augmentation, or trying to handle all the work that we have, which I think definitely is an industry-wide kind of global challenge that's going on. We do have that positive trend of maybe some more civil engineers doing the dual degree option with surveying, which I think is really, really beneficial. And I think that's huge. And then on the client side of things, or just in general, there's looks like there's a lot of opportunity in this industry because of succession or retirements. I mean, we work with a lot of government agencies too, doing our PM training programs, and there's a lot of retirement each and every year where they're looking for people to step up. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity out there for those of you that are building up your skills and progressing in the industry.
Strong project outcomes need skilled managers and competent leaders. EMI's corporate training delivers expert-led courses in project management and people leadership, plus industry-recognized certification and exclusive premium content to take your team even further. Elevate your team's leadership capabilities today. Visit engineeringmanagementinstitute.org and click on corporate training.
All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of switch gears, and we're going to go into our final segment, which we call our civil engineering hot seat segment, where I'm going to ask Lisa just a kind of a rapid round of questions focused around her career and how she's grown as a professional. You ready, Lisa? All right, so the first one is, do you have any specific rituals that you practice every day, maybe a morning routine or a lunchtime routine, or just something that you've done consistently over time that has helped you to contribute to your success as a professional?
I wouldn't consider it daily, but it's definitely weekly. On Sunday, I take a look at my calendar ahead of me. I jot down the weather on my daily planner. I take a look at what I have going on each of those days, and I plot out the clothing. I then actually go to my closet and I schedule out what my outfits are going to be for the week, do some meal prep, try to portion out things and have my lunch ready to go so that I don't have to have that lunch chaos. And then on a daily basis, it's walk the dogs. And then in the evening hours, it's Ubering my daughter back and forth from dance, volleyball, or whatever else is going on. But so Sunday's my ritual day to get everything ready.
That's great. No, I like that. A lot of planning on Sundays to set up the week. That's great. So next one is, has there been maybe one book or an author or a philosophy or a framework or something that you've come across in your career that has stuck with you and contributed to your success, your leadership development, your personal development, something along the way that has stuck with you?
Yes, there is a book I recommend to everyone. I think I've recommended it to the WTS Professional Society peers. It's called Boots on the Ground, Flats in the Boardroom. And it's the stories of the women who helped build out our infrastructure. It's about 20 chapters. They're short chapters, and it's different categories between freight, airports, the major bridges, tunnels, all that sort of stuff. And I don't remember where I heard it. If it was a podcast, I'm an avid podcast person. If I heard it from another, Rena Cutler, I think is one of the stories that was in there. And I remember meeting her at an event, and I just don't remember where I learned about the book, but I tell everybody about it. So, and when I'm working with a friend or anyone that might be doubtful of themselves, like, we are in charge of some really key infrastructure projects here in New Jersey. And I'm like, you're the next chapter in that book. I hope to be a chapter in that book and later in life, right? Like, these are
That's
pivotal
great.
things that the Newark Bay Hudson County Extension that so many people are working on or project managing, or, just did it, direct connect, or there's this the Northeast Corridor, like, just
Right.
list out all of the major infrastructure projects that are happening in our lifetime. And, the people that are working on them, clearly I'm an advocate for women in STEM. But there's a lot of women that could be the next chapters in that book. And, I like to be supportive of them and remind them that they could be a chapter.
That's great. Yeah, it's boots on the ground, flats in the boardroom, transportation, women tell their stories. The authors are Grace Krunikin and Elizabeth Levin. So sounds like a good read. All right, great. All right, next question. Thinking back on some of your managers of the past, and you don't have to name names, but if you think about your favorite manager or managers, what was it that made them your favorite? Trying to think about what makes for great managers and leaders in civil engineering.
So I know who, hands down, and I can tell you it was the candor, encouragement, the faith they had in me. It more than anything, it's the feeling in the relationship and the mutual trust and admiration. There's always going to be managers. You're gonna have good managers that are gonna give you the opportunity, that are gonna get you the resources, that you need. But that the great manager is the one that there's a special connection, because they either went the extra mile, or you went the extra mile for them. Like, you had some sort of connection that was just stronger than the regular administrative components of things. And I definitely had that person, and in some key times where either there was some self-doubt, and they helped me, remind me that, like, I had what it took to get something done. That person exists for me. And I remind myself of some of those conversations that we had that, got me through some, challenging decisions, or just whatever was needed to get me through to the next step. And
That's great.
I hope that others have that person that they can lean on. And I hope to be that person for others too, in my lifetime.
That's great. And I love that, because first of all, what you just said is great, because when you have a great leader, they're kind of modeling the way for you, right? And you could try to take their example and then implement it into your leadership style, which is great. And I also think just that whole idea of, we forget how much our encouragement as leaders can have an impact on people in both their careers, I think in their lives as well. Like you said, maybe making some really important career decisions, life decisions. And I think sometimes when we show up to work every day, we get bogged down with some of the project work, and we have to forget the people side of it and the impact that we can have. That's really important. All right, last question for you, Lisa. We call it the civil engineering career elevator advice question. If you were to get into an elevator with an up and coming civil engineer, maybe you had 30 to 40 seconds with him or her, what career advice would you share with them in that short period of time?
I actually know what I tell every engineer and surveyor, remember, dual, read articles, listen to podcasts, keep learning, stay relevant, but understand history, because we're designing for the future, but we have to tie into the old systems. So it's great that they know about technology, but what happens when you have to tie into a 100-year-old wooden pipe, right? So you have to think forward, but understand the infrastructure that was built. Because in New Jersey, we don't have the luxury of like virgin land. We are restricted. Everything that we're going to do is going to be retrofit, modifications, enhancements. So for us, it's really key to understand how things were built, or as my daughter would say, back in the day,
Right.
in order to take things and move things forward. And key to that really is having access to historical knowledge, and then being able to take that information and design critically forward and being meaningful. Because it's one thing you can design the best all new brand new thing, but when you got to tie into something that's 100 years old,
Hmm.
with working traffic or flowing water,
Right.
you gotta manage all the things. So stay relevant, read articles. Most of these articles and subscriptions, they're gonna, just sign up for it. They'll send it to your desk, flip through it, and recycle it, or go digital, whatever. So
Good
that's
stuff. All right. Well, once again, Lisa Peterson. Lisa is a licensed professional engineer, professional land surveyor, associate vice president, and manager of strategic client engagement at Dewberry. Lisa, thank you so much for spending some time with us here on the Civil Engineering Podcast.
excellent. Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Lisa. If you did, please subscribe to our channel here. We put out videos like this on a weekly basis to help civil engineers become better project managers and leaders. I'll see you next week.